Okay, I'd like to call the City of Elkhorn Common Council, January 17th, 5:30 meeting to order. If we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the roll call, please.
Bruce Lechner,
Here.
Tim Sharota,
Here.
Gary Payson Jr.,
Here.
Ron Dunwoody is absent, Scott McClory,
Here.
Ken Minell is absent, Carol Young. Here.
Moving on, public comment. Do we have anybody for public comment tonight? Teresa, okay, give me 1 second. I gotta read a statement and then if you can come up to the podium or table, whichever you prefer. Although the public may speak in any item that is not included on this agenda as a public hearing or forum, the council may not respond or discuss this issue brought forward at this time. In accordance with open meeting laws, the council must notice an item on the agenda to allow discussion on that matter. Your comments will be considered and may be placed on a future agenda for further discussion. If you could just state your name and.
My name is Teresa Boger, and I am employed by the City of Elkhorn at the Police Department. Yes, it is true, as outlined in the Common Council memo by the City Administrator, that several employees emailed the Mayor and City Administrator about the letter City employees received dated January 5th, 2022, regarding our HRA reimbursed expense changes. On December 8th, City employees were given a memo regarding the HRA changes, advising employees on March 27, 2020, the CARES Act was signed into law, and among other things, it affected the HRA plan. Prior to the changes being made in the CARES Act, employees would access their available HRA funds for deductibles and co-insurance reimbursement only. The new guidelines allow employees to also be able to request reimbursement for many other qualified HRA expenses. We were then given a copy of eligible medical expenses. Amongst the hustle and bustle of the holiday, we were given a deadline to get these items returned to City Hall. I know I spent over 2 hours looking for doctor's appointments and expenses, as did several other employees that I work with. When we received our paperwork back from the city with a letter dated January 5th, 2022, stating, upon further review of the CARES Act and the impact on HRA plans, the city was informed the original information received was inaccurate. The policy remains unchanged. That's it, no explanation further. That is why the email was sent. We were looking for clarification and reasoning. I'm safe in saying that the employees appreciate this benefit and are aware that it is an already budgeted benefit. So why are we not able to use what's budgeted as outlined in the CARES Act for reimbursable expenses? I'm sure there are employees that I work with and amongst the city that don't have the usual deductibles and co-insurance because they may not go to the doctor, but they sure do have other expenses out of the pocket, such as over-the-counter medication, prescriptions, eye exams, first aid items, things that we use continuously to be well so we can come to work. Tonight, I'm asking the council to amend the HRA wording in the policy to include these additional expenses. Thank you for your time.
Anybody else for public comment?
Tim Boss, Water Utility Superintendent. Couple things. First of all, I'd like to introduce my water utility foreman, Shane Kurth, just so you can put a face with the name. And I've got an operator, Bryant, right behind him, Bryant Minell. But what I'm really up here for is for you to talk amongst yourselves at a further date. But we're extending the invitation for any and all of you to go out and get a hold of Shane or myself, and we will take you to all the water facilities, all the plants, and all the further conversations that will be coming up in the future, that you could be able to put some sort of a picture in your mind and you'll be able to see what exactly, and you'll have some sort of an idea what we're talking about. So at any given point in time, doesn't matter, call me, call Shane. I'll give you cards at the end of the night, so you've got our phone numbers and stuff, but just whenever. We we'd be more than happy to take you around, so, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment? Close public comment then. Next, we have the consent agenda, the council meeting minutes from January 3rd, 2022. Everybody had them in their packet?
Before we do the council meeting minutes, can we speak directly about the agenda itself? I'd like to make a motion to amend our consent agenda and go as the first order of business to be respectful of the employees that are here off duty. I'd like to move number 9H to the front of the agenda, please.
All that, so we'll move
Thank
that
you.
up before the consent agenda. So right now on the table, we have the discussion and decision on the HRA plan amendment. Got the memo in their packet? We have any questions for Jim on that?
What are the fiscal considerations for making changes to that? We got any ideas?
If you stuck with this plan beyond this year, I would say that the budget implications, I would probably have to add probably $10,000 to $12,000 to make sure I could cover everyone's HRA. Teresa, the only thing that wasn't quite accurate is the money isn't always there. We know that everyone's not going to access all of their HRA. You can look historically with the co-insurance and deductible we have about what will be taken out on an annual basis. So we don't fund 100% because it's not necessary. We, kind of look at historically and then we add a little buffer to that to make sure. But I would say that's about how much I'd pump the budget up. It's not significant, but it's enough to make sure if more people are accessing more of their HRA for other expenses, then the historical data would be inaccurate and we'd have to start compiling new information. I don't see that as drastic at all. I think it's very doable.
We have a couple options here. The first option, I think we should at least amend the program so that everybody that turn in can get reimbursed for what was told. And our second option is if we do want to keep the amendment or go back to the old plan. I would be forward to just moving it to the new plan and stay forward with that for the employees, but that's up to council too. But I think at most we should do is it was an unfortunate mistake, but I think we do need to cover what was told to these employees.
I agree.
Are we talking, or does it?
That's what we have to decide, if we want to keep it ongoing or if we want to make it available, is what Jim had talked to me about. We can make it available so it covers, but then we would have to go right back and re-amend it back to the old, correct, Jim?
Well, I think when we set up our HRA plan, the intent was for deductibles and co-insurance. The extra 500 that the council added on a couple of years ago, that's on the tail end. And that's intent was if employees have a rough year health-wise, we're going to give a little $500 help, okay, to those costs. It wasn't necessarily meant for everyone to go out and buy a bunch of stuff and use up that $500, even though it's at the end and you'd have to expend all your other money to get to it. But it never was the intent. If you want that to be the intent now, that's fine. I'm just saying when we created this HRA, it was not. So, whatever you want to do going forward, it's up.
Can make the intent with the Federal CARES Act now.
Yes, you can.
I guess I have a legal question. Would it be best to have a separate motion to cover make them whole, for lack of a better term, for the 2021 expenses, and then go to have a separate second motion for the intent and application of any modified policy changes going forward in 2022?
Actually, what you'd be doing is making a motion to modify your HRA plan along the lines that we're discussing with the CARES Act. If you did that, you would have to then make a second motion only if you wanted to rescind it after the 2021 year. So what I'm saying is, if you make it, it's done, and you've essentially accomplished both of the mayor's suggestions at once, and you don't have to make a second motion. If somebody said, oh no, I only want this to be for 2021 because of this letter that went out, and I want it to be different, then you'd have to make a second motion to amend it back after 2022.
And I'll make a motion to amend it the way the mayor described it.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any,
Interrupt for a second. Doesn't it have to include 2020 expenses as well?
Well, yes, I guess we're talking about what was submitted in 2021, and that would include 2020.
according to the CARES Act, they could go back into
Right,
2020.
and that's what I didn't phrase my question correctly. That's where I was heading.
Oh, I see.
To
Now at
cap-
least
to
I
ca-
understand where you're going
Yeah,
with
I
that.
didn't phrase the question correctly, but I wanted to make sure we captured all the way back to 2020. That's, yeah, okay.
Clearly, the intent of the motion was to make sure that you dealt with the issue that's before the body, so.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we are all clear on that.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion or questions?
So this would cover all city employees. How does that affect our union employees? Aren't benefits negotiated?
Not necessarily, I mean, we provide health care insurance to them. They're, by their union contract, they don't, you know, the amount they have, ours is in excess of 500. Other than that, everything that we're allowed to do would be also applicable to the union employees.
Questions or discussion? Roll call, please.
Scott McClory,
Yes.
Gary Payson Jr.,
Yes.
Tim Sharota,
Yes.
Carol Young.
Yes.
Motion passed. Is there any further discussion that we want to do on this, or are we good? Okay, so we're moving forward with the new plan with the Federal CARES Act, too. Next, we'll go back up to the consent agenda. Council meeting minutes, January 3rd, 2022.
I make a motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any question or discussion or changes anybody seen? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed for the council minutes. Next, we have bills payable, consideration and recommendation to pay $8,362,043.30. Those all in your packet. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the bills.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Any questions or discussion or anything on the bills? Roll call, please.
Gary Payson Jr.,
Yes.
Carol Young,
Yes.
Scott McClory,
Yes.
Tim Sharota.
Yes.
Moving on to report of city officers, mayor. The only thing I have is, I met with Carl, Matt, and Lacey on Friday, and went over the taping and everything up on the screens and everything. Moving forward, Carl and Matt are gonna be working on getting the meetings in a timely manner on the website, so that's why we're asking to make sure our mics are down and everything, because the recordings have been real good so far. But the only thing it didn't pick up was the Pledge of Allegiance, because we all turned, but otherwise it picks up everything else real good. The camera angle was good that they've worked on. So the timely manner, they're working within a few days or within a week after the meetings will be online. So all of our meetings will be back online and videoed. So for this plan commission and anybody else that need them for, so. Next, Jim?
Things, I just had a discussion with our consultant for the city administrator position. Just wanted to update that they have 13 applicants already, and there are 4 potential candidates have indicated they will submit prior to the due date. So we're looking at least 17 candidates, which is great. It's a little different than every other position we try to fill, so it's nice to have a lot of candidates finally for a position. In moving along with that on the timeline, your next council meeting on February 7th, at the end of the agenda will be an item, and it's going to be an hour to hour and a half long, and that will be the first phase of starting to look at some of the candidates, starting to trim them down. You'll get your first look at some of these individuals.
If you said the date, I didn't catch it.
February 7th, the next council meeting. It would be at the end of the agenda, so it's your regular council meeting night. It would be Well, it was a little more fun. Now you get to choose, there's a probably 3-hour meeting where we're gonna see 6-minute videos of each of the finalists, however many you choose, to kind of take a bigger look at. They're gonna have narratives on all of these people, and we're gonna get a little more into the bone. You can do that a number of different ways. I don't know that you would want to do this, but your next meeting after the 7th is on the 21st. If you chose to, we could just let her rip once we're done with that meeting, or if you don't want to go that late into the evening, I don't know how long the council agenda will be, anyone's guess.
Won't be around, Scott, and we'll make it happen.
We'll figure it out, we'll do what we have to do.
I have plans right now not to be here on the 21st, so.
Okay, well, the other,
The what?
How about the 22nd?
I'm not sure if I'll be back again. It's gonna be like it was today where, when am I getting in?
right,
So,
Or the
Okay.
23rd we could do.
is that a Wednesday?
Yes.
yeah. I mean,
I should be back by then, for sure.
okay. If you-
Or
if
the
you don't want-
24th would be, you played even safer. The Thursday.
They have the 21st, 22nd, 23rd open.
Of course they do. Don't work around me, just do what you gotta do, and if I can make it, great, if I can get it,
Wondering if the council wanted to just go with it on Monday when they're here, or if they'd rather go on a Tuesday or Wednesday instead of doing it all on a Monday.
I know I will not be here on the 21st.
Would you
That won't
prefer
happen.
would have to be, in order to try to stick with our timeline as best we can, I would say Tuesday or Wednesday, or we just do it on Monday. We just get it done on Monday.
How does council feel?
I'm willing to let you guys just do it on the 21st, if you're okay with me not being present, I trust you.
I think
We should have everybody here. Of course you do.
Actually, I mean, if we did it all at once, that's fine with me. It doesn't matter either way.
Then it's gonna have to be, to play it safe, it's gonna have to be that Thursday.
But they're not
I
available.
don't
Well,
know if
I
they're-
can't, I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, let's.
Right. No, I don't know if they're available on Thursdays. I know they're available these days. And we didn't want to push off to the 28th. That's the following Monday, because then your timeline shot.
Question, Jim. So we're gonna get stuff on the 7th.
Yes.
So why can't we have something the week of the 14th?
I am not sure if that works for them.
Oh, okay.
Because we gotta whittle it down to
Yeah, and this
5
was,
or whatever, 4 or
this
5 that
was
we're gonna
their
look at.
calendar.
14th is Valentine's Day, and.
Their calendar
they
was
might
the
already- Well, I'm just saying, they might already have plans or something with their.
Well, then they gotta get these guys to make their videos.
their calendar was the 21st, and I said, I don't know if that's going to work. I said, let's see if the council's willing to do that, because we do have a council meeting.
Why not do it the 23rd? Why don't we do it the 23rd, and that way we'll do your best to get here.
Okay.
Okay,
5:30?
Sure.
Mike,
30.
my question to council members is, I would like to see department heads involved in this too, because they do work with them every day. So I think they should be invited.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
Yeah, I agree, absolutely. Who's bringing the coffee?
Have our regular meeting on the 21st.
Yes, we'll have a regular council meeting on 21st. The 7th will be our first meeting for
We'll
them.
have two.
I mean, well, it's kind of long. I think this is going to be a meeting where you're really going to get down to the bones of the person you want. Okay, and you're really going to get to meet them and their narrative.
Okay.
Time well spent.
I just really think it's important that more people are there because this is an important position.
I really agree with you, Gary. Whatever we gotta do.
23rd at 5:30.
But the 7th will be the first initial one.
Yes, there will be one at the end of the meeting on the 7th. Yes.
Moving on to report on liaison committee meetings. Fire advisory, Rod?
Next Thursday, the 27th, 6 o'clock.
Gary?
The library met, last Wednesday, I believe, maybe the 2 Wednesdays ago. But yeah, there's a discussion about the ADA compliance grant. The library has concerns that tying up the lobby bathrooms for most of the summer was gonna cause them some problems. And it was also going to affect their renting of the community center. Hard to rent it with no lavatories. Makes a lot of sense. So I think since the meeting, there's been discussions here at City Hall about that. They're just trying to work through it. They also have a new teen advisory board. Their first meeting is February 11th. It should be a great opportunity for leadership experience for some high school teens and volunteer hours. And there's no school on February 4th. And at 10 a.m., the library is sponsoring a live reptile program. We should all try to make it. So that's it.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Next, Rec, Gary, or
Carl?
Carl?
Yes. Our next Park and Rec Advisory Board meeting is on February 9th here at City Hall. And just want to let you guys know of an update. So our rec supervisor position is open until filled. We're still waiting on qualified applicants to interview. So.
I know Ken's gone, but Chris is here. Do you have any update, Chris? Thank you, Chris. Next, moving on to new business. First, we have discussion and decision on City of Elkhorn Commerce Court roadway dedication, the certified survey map. That came through Plan Commission and was recommended to council.
I make a motion to approve the CSM.
Motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any question or discussion? Roll call, please.
Scott McClory,
Yes.
Tim Sharota,
Yes.
Gary Payson Jr.,
Yes.
Carol Young.
Yes.
Motion passed for the Elkhorn Commerce Court roadway dedication. Next, discussion and decision on City of Elkhorn Morrissey Drive rezone, the ordinance number 22-01. That also went through Plan Commission and recommended. We have a motion, or
Make a motion to approve.
do we have
I'll
a second?
second.
We have a second. We have any questions or discussion? Roll call, please.
Scott McClory,
Yes.
Carol Young,
Yes.
Gary Payson Jr.,
Yes.
Tim Sharota.
Yes.
Motion passed for ordinance number 22-01. Discussion and decision on specific implementation plan, the Harvest Point Villas. That also came through Plan Commission, was recommended to move on. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Roll call, please.
Carol Young,
Yes.
Tim Sharota,
Yes.
Gary Payson Jr.,
Yes.
Scott McClory.
Yes.
Motion passed for the specific implementation plan for Harvest Point Villas. Next, discussion and decision on task order number 16, engineering services for 2022 stormwater improvements project. There was a memo in your packet from Kapoor and everything. Task order number 16.
I'll make a motion to approve task order 16.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Do we have any discussion or questions? Roll call, please.
Gary Payson Jr.,
Yes.
Scott McClory,
Yes.
Carol Young,
Yes.
Tim Sharota.
Yes.
Motion passed for task order number 16. Discussion and decision on execution of contract engineering services for 2022 sewer rehabilitation project. Everybody seen that memo? Any questions or discussion? Motion?
Make a motion to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second. Again, do we have any questions or discussion? Roll call, please.
Scott McClory,
Yes.
Carol Young,
Yes.
Gary Payson Jr.,
Yes.
Tim Sharota.
Yes.
Motion passed for engineering services for 2022 sewer rehabilitation project. Discussion and decision on task order number 17, engineering services for 2022 Elkhorn Street and parking improvement projects. Everybody seen that memo? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve task order number 17.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions from council? Discussion? I guess I got one question for Kapoor, Tim, Mike. Looking at the pricing, the Broad Street parking lot, to me, that's just, what, 20 feet wide behind the fire station? And that's $9,900. And Washington Street parking lot, to me, is a lot bigger, and that's only $1,000 more. I guess, can I get an explanation of the difference in cost for, seems like the parking lot at Washington Street's 3, 4, or 5 times the size.
Well, I guess one of the reasons would be, you basically have to go through the same amount of work to get a parking lot put together. One of the things on the Broad Street, the Broad Street one would be, it's existing gravel, so there's a little bit more into it. We gotta look into it a little bit more. A little heavier on the design part, portion of the utilities, existing utilities, field review. I guess the biggest thing, I guess, would be the same amount of engineering gets put in, not the same amount, but it's a very similar amount gets put into each parking lot because they're kind of the same animal.
It's just, it was only a couple hours difference, but it just seemed like a lot of hours for a smaller area compared to, the Broad Street on the final plan is like 20 hours for one engineer, and it's 22 on the Washington Street. I don't know, it just seems like a lot to me.
Well, another thing too is it's a budget so that if we don't use those hours, we don't sometimes it's difficult to come up with a dollar amount, the proper dollar amount. We don't know what we're getting into always, so.
Yeah, I kind of figured that's probably what was gonna said, but I just, just seemed like a lot more, for $1,000 more. That's all the difference is, $1,100. Call, please.
Gary Payson Jr.,
Yes.
Tim Sharota,
Yes.
Scott McClory,
Yes.
Carol Young.
Yes.
Motion passed for task order number 17. Discussion and decision on exception to the modified duty the police department policy. Joel?
This is actually a city policy that you're looking to modify potentially. So I think you may recall at the end of last year, we modified the modified duty policy and upped it to 13 weeks. I can't remember if it was 8 weeks prior to that or what the exact term was. but we increased it to 13 weeks. We have an employee that is on modified duty currently, that most likely will surpass that 13 weeks. So I guess we're looking for the council to possibly approve extending that. At the same time, I don't want to create any past practice concerns or anything else that Ward might be able to speak more into. But that employee has been a benefit while on modified duty. If we're able to use that employee in that current role for an extended 8 weeks, or making the total to 21 weeks, it would be to our best interest right now.
So if I understand it correctly, the current policy says that 13 weeks is the maximum.
Yeah, the reason for that is that's when you would be eligible for disability. And this employee, which has been a real benefit to the department, would prefer to keep working, and it's budgeted, there's no financial implication. I think it's great that that he has that attitude, prefer to work rather than sitting at home collecting disability, so.
So if I'm reading the tea leaves correctly, the recommendation would be to have it say, have the policy change state that you can work up to 13 weeks on modified duty with the ability after 13 weeks to have that extended upon mutual agreement with the department head or something similar to that for all city employees.
Or are we looking at a one-time?
I was just looking at a one-time exemption, and you could do what you're doing, saying too. I mean.
But then the next person's gonna potentially have the same thing, we'll be right back where we started from.
Well, that's what I'm asking the city
Yeah.
attorney, which is the best route to go here, Ward?
Well, legitimately, sorry to interrupt your Ward, but legitimately, 99% of our people have not gotten up to the 13-week threshold. They've gone back to work.
Right.
So it's,
Or go on disability.
so I would prefer not to revisit this at all. Let's just make it something simple and easy to have a little wiggle room in.
Well, certainly Scott's idea would work. There's no reason that you couldn't do it that way. I would worry about having and this wasn't really on my radar. Joel and I hadn't discussed it before tonight, just so I haven't researched anything on this or gone back and reviewed the policy. But it would make sense to me that it would create an issue for the city in the future if you made an exception to it. I'd rather you see a modification of the policy so it's always, all the employees are treated that way and everybody knows that that's the way it's going to be in the future. I would want to maybe sit down with Joel and at least have a brief discussion about the wording of what the department head would be, if it's the department head that makes the decision or has to come to council or whatever, what the wording would be of why it would be extended in those individual situations, to put some kind of a criteria on it so we know what we're talking about.
I would
Does that make sense, Joel?
Yes, I think the discussion should go through the city administrator since it's a city policy. It's not my department policy. It's an overall city policy, so that discussion should be had with the city administrator.
The council prefer that the decision is brought here, done by the city administrator, to extend, because I mean, you don't just get an extension, you can request an extension. City administrator can make that decision, or.
I'm sorry.
No, or the council, if you prefer it to come here.
It would be unusual, past practice, it'd be unusual for the council to make individual administrative decisions like that. It might be a slippery slope. I'd suggest from a legal standpoint, it might be better to, and basically from a practical standpoint, to leave it at the city administrator position.
So were you looking at keeping the policy at 13 weeks and then there would be an exception of 8 more weeks added on? Is that how you're going to word it?
If the city administrator were to approve it.
Yes, needs approval.
I would want to talk with Jim about what that wording would be. You could make a decision right now and I have a vote on the decision to go forward. We could come back to you with the specific language.
I'm fine with that. My only, I guess, caveat would be if said employee applies for extension and presents it with his, I assume with the support of his or her department head, and the city administrator says no or yes, whichever way he or she votes, that's the end of it? There's no appeal process for that employee? Or is there currently? Is there currently? I guess if there's not right now, then I don't want to even open up that box.
Short answer is I don't know.
Okay.
I'd have to look at it.
Yeah.
I think right now the policy, isn't it, Jim, where you can have up to 13 weeks?
Yes, you can have.
So there's no.
Correct. But what I'm saying is if this
denied it.
If he denies it for whatever reason, and that employee and/or potentially their department head says, whoa, that's not fair, we want this revisited, is there an appeal process? Or should there be? If there's not, that's fine, let's leave it the way it is.
Whatever the contract says would be my reaction initially.
Okay.
Whether there's some administrative code section that would say they've got a process or a procedure to go beyond that, I'd have to take a look at that.
I agree with you, I don't think unless there's some weird derivative that I'm not thinking of, it shouldn't come before the council to decide, that's not our business.
Okay.
So, go ahead, Joel.
So I guess the question I have is, I wonder, is an additional 8 for a total of 21, I don't know if that's a magic number that you have to have, or should it be something more? I guess, just remember that the modified duty policy only covers those injuries that are work-related. If they're outside of work, they're not covered, they're not able to even participate in the modified duty. So it's only for work-related injuries. So we're still receiving a benefit of the employee working. And I guess my fear is, and I don't want to obviously extend it indefinitely either, but would it be beneficial to say, yeah, we started 13 weeks as a rule of thumb, but should it be more than, let's say, 21? Should you look at 26 as a maximum? I don't know what a magic number is, but at the same time, I don't want to maybe limit you for someone that is making progress to come back to duty, but just isn't quite there yet. So I'm just saying 21 weeks. Yeah, that's better than nothing, but what if they're going to be ready, in 2 more weeks or?
Maybe we should just defer to Ward and let you come up with something that will work, bring it back.
You mean come up with the language?
Yeah.
We were going
Don't
point
paint us into a
specific.
corner if we don't have to be painted into a corner. It can be, we can use words like reasonable and both parties agree and all that kind of stuff versus simply saying at 16 weeks you have to apply for an extension, at 20 weeks you got to apply for another extension, et cetera. Yeah.
I would say, in this specific case, we're looking at this specific case. I think if you want to, we could do the language that it can be extended upon approval of the city administrator. We don't have to put a set number of weeks in there.
Right.
And the city administrator, I would assume, if they're worth anything, is going to be monitoring this and make sure that any extension, given. But again, in this situation, we have an employee asking to work when they could possibly apply for disability, and we'll be very lenient with that, I think, as far as, hey, if you can work and it's not going to injure you, and rather than be in disability and getting nothing out of the employee, this would be, so I think we need to use some common sense too.
Right, and I'm listening to what Joel and Jim are saying, and it occurs to me that, the criteria could be something as simple as the city administrator makes a determination based upon the benefit to the city, not the individual employee.
Exactly what we're saying.
And on the fly.
It's ain't his first rodeo.
I guess my question to Joel would be, when is this employee's, is it like now the 13 weeks are up, or is it coming up in a couple, or?
I believe it's coming up in the next couple. Lacey would be able to answer that question better than I.
I just don't want to. And so we can keep this employee, otherwise.
I would think we could make a motion that this person's grandfathered or included or contingent or whatever extended, verbally, and then we'll have the written language, forthcoming or something like that. How does that work for everyone?
I just want to make sure we cover this employee.
Right.
For
We
sure.
don't want them waiting on a vote for us and they're like.
Right, if it's next week and we don't have a vote.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
What kind of motion?
I don't know.
Scott, you making a motion?
I tried, but it didn't come out right. I would like to make a motion to direct our city attorney and the city administrator to draft amended language to the current policy allowing for employees to have modified duty that benefits the city. And again, includes this person currently under the, I'm about up against the deadline. So some version of that. And then he'll bring it back to us for a full vote in the not too distant future.
You're just directing us to go forward, and I think that motion is more than adequate for that.
So we have a motion, do we have a second?
That person's covered now.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions or discussion want to be added? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Next, we have the learning session on abstaining and motions to table procedures. Everybody had that in their packet. We just had Ward to kind of write that up. And does anybody have any questions towards Ward on any of that or anything?
I guess, no, you go first.
Go ahead. On the tabling stuff, you know, I've only been here a short time myself. Do we have any records of the stuff that we've tabled that should come back up or anything like that?
It's all in the minutes.
Do we actually go back to them?
Yeah, eventually we
Okay,
circle back
okay,
to it for
okay.
sure.
Okay.
And I know on Plan Commission, there's been some stuff tabled and it's brought back. But the biggest thing is we have to bring it off the table in order to talk about it again, so.
So the point is, it's easier to say postpone and then give a date. And it all came up because I asked a question, so I apologize, but it's a good thing to learn, right?
Yeah.
Dug into Robert's rules in a depth that I haven't for a while.
Thanks, Lacey.
Any other questions?
I just have an interpretive question. Under the statute that you cited, it says that if you abstain for no legitimate reason, will leave the taxpayer without representation, which is likely a violation of your oath of office. If somebody chooses to abstain, do they also, in your interpretation of said abstention, have to cite the reason that they're abstaining?
Well,
For the
really-
I mean, for the record, like I'm abstaining because I'm in business with Joel Christensen. We run a security business together, so I can't vote on this. So do I have to declare that?
No, I think it really comes
Which
down.
we're not, by the way, just for the record.
It comes down to the individual alder person's judgment as to whether or not they have a conflict or not.
Right.
So I don't think you need to go into detail about your personal life when you make a motion to abstain.
Fair
I just
enough.
think it needs to be
Okay.
understood by council members that it's for this reason. It's for a conflict.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, we will adjourn into closed session and we will reconvene in open session. Do we have a motion to adjourn into closed session?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We'll go into closed session. We have a motion about the sale of the industrial parkland.
We do. I would like to make a motion to direct staff to enforce our contract and recoup our earnest money.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second. Any questions or discussion?
Were we gonna add 60 days on it or no?
Oh, sorry, yes, net 60 days. Thank you. I would have forgot that part.
That,
Yes.
okay. So Scott, any other questions, discussion? Roll call, please.
Scott McClory,
Yes.
Tim Sharota,
Yes.
Carol Young,
Yes.
Gary Peason Jr.
Yes.
Motion passed. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.